We're back out here working on this whole Lancer Evo project. Sean's been busy. What'd you do, buddy?
Oh, pulled it all apart. Got the doors off, got the hatch off, got the front clip off, the headlights. Now we're gonna spot welds.
She got you a little present, buddy.
What's this? Oh wow, thank you, buddy. I've been needing some of these. I appreciate you.
So I think we're gonna turn this channel into a spot welding channel instead of a primer channel. Last video you seen us cut this whole thing out, but since then Sean went ahead and drilled out all the spot welds, got the rocker off of here, obviously pulled the whole front end off of this thing. If you guys didn't know, we are giving away this 700 horsepower Evo, link in the description. Now we are actually moving to the back of the car and actually gonna get this whole rear pan out and basically weld this whole pan in there, so that way we could bolt the whole all-wheel drive setup in this thing, turn this grandma car into like an actual Evo cool wagon. What do you think
About what?
about this project? You like it?
Oh, I think that engine's good.
Why?
I mean, it has a quart of oil in there. You know it's good to go. It's Trevor's built Evo engine.
You got some spot welds ahead of you, buddy.
Yep, I'm getting all set up. Another 400 today probably. I'ma keep on drilling cause I love this shit.
I have this quarter panel off of the wrecked car, pretty wrecked, but I just thought it would be funny to, like, since it's off of the car, to pull it out, lay it on the ground, test out my hammer and dolly skills. You get this thing back, maybe not 100%, but just at least for like mock-up test until we get another quarter panel, or if it works, then we're just gonna freaking throw a skim on it. So we got a kind of a nice little pin right here that we got to get out, and then obviously this whole thing is just really pushed in. There's a really tight kind of piece right there that I'm not stoked about getting out, but we're just gonna throw it. Gonna try to get some play tappy. His day 3 now of doing spot welds. Sean, what do you think about spot welds so far?
About over them.
Really? Are you gonna? Can you give us a little how-to? Should we wait?
There's plenty of content with how to do spot welds in this video.
We haven't showed you guys actually how to do a spot weld. We'll get to that in a minute. We got this thing all flipped over right here, and there's actually a little bit difference in, well, there's basically everything is different is what we've learned. This right here, this is like 7 inches, and over here it's like 10 or 12 inches. So this is a lot thicker right here, the distance from here to here. You can see that's basically suspension point, like where I did that, a little short. So we need to pull this out. It's actually kind of layered in between this guy right here. So have a lot of spot welds to do. So Sean's been basically working on this thing all morning. It is Wednesday. We've been doing spot welds since Monday. We got back over here all day. Yeah. So we got this piece of the suspension off. So we're gonna have to section in this piece right here. I actually didn't realize that it actually splits up here a little bit more, but we're just gonna leave that. We're gonna weld it in right here, and that should be okay. So now most of the spot welds are pretty much done on this thing, right? Other than just kind of chopping off at the top of here. So now it's basically we just move over here and start whacking on this thing and making this thing, drilling out all the stuff on here. So now is kind of the confusing part where we have these, so we have the seat pillar right here. This is the seat belt stuff for the wagon. You can see it obviously ties up into the structure that goes into here, that goes into these wheel wells. So we have the spot welds drilled out right here to pull those off of there and basically leave a little section of that in the actual car. But just looking at everything, man, there's just so many pieces still need to kind of come off. So we got this section off down here, and I think we've kind of agreed on just cutting it like right in here or basically right in there somewhere. And that's where we're actually gonna have to stitch everything together. So the floor pan is all pulled up. Most of that stuff is off, pretty much ready to start doing something with it. So starting to mark where we're gonna cut. We got all the spot welds drilled out around the back. Around here, we got these little plates off right here, leaving the quarter panel for all the bumper alignment and stuff. A little bit more figuring. We definitely have some more to figure out before we keep going. All right, guys, so it is day 4 of drilling spot welds. How many hours of labor do you think we have in this thing between you and me? Both of us, yeah. So we have 40 hours between the both of us out here drilling spot welds and looking at stuff and figuring out where to cut stuff and thinking and contemplating and
just keep finding more and more stuff that's different.
Do we know what we're doing yet?
I don't think we know what we're doing yet, or I don't think we ever will, but we're gonna figure it out.
We know the goal, we don't know the right way. So we're basically gonna split it somewhere in between here. You can see we have that, but all these layers are like pinched together. There's like 3 layers sandwiched. This thing's technically different than that. See how this is thin, see how that one's thick. The same right here. The fender wells, you can see that this pillar comes down and goes on top of there. So we removed that little section. And then we have obviously this whole back piece, which is tied into this, which goes up into here. We don't have that over here. So I'm kind of drilling out this side, drilling out the whole rear pan, trying to get everything off. There's no how-to on this, and we're literally just trying to figure it out. Who knows? Like, I don't know. Who knows if this thing's actually gonna go back together?
I sure as hell hope so. A lot of work for nothing.
It's gonna be a lot of work for an Evo wagon. And a lot of people are like, hey, how come you just don't put the wagon hatch basically on an Evo? Well, that's like a $20,000 car when it has the engine replaced. This thing was too wrecked in the front to do that too. We thought about it, but like this whole front frame horn and everything is just pushed back, and everything on this car is just buckled. Roof and some of this stuff was kind of tweaked back here. We're not gonna mess with that. This wagon was literally perfect. And I think if we get in a pickle, we could always, let's say we cut everything out of here, we could always take this stuff and still put it on an Evo if we wanted to. So like,
yeah, hopefully you don't have to go that route.
We're literally just, I don't know. We're just drilling away is literally all we're doing. I continue, but I want to give you guys a how-to since we're doing so many spot welds and basically the tools that you need in order to drill spot welds out. Sean, he's the expert at doing all this. So come on over here, buddy. Let's show them how to do spot welds. I'm just gonna do a couple of test ones over here on this spare chassis or the broken chassis. So if you guys are ever gonna replace a quarter panel or anything like that, this is kind of what you're gonna do, or a rocker panel or anything. You see, basically these cars are all welded together with spot welds only.
Center punch, you got a hammer, you got a drill with a spot weld bit.
So these are the kind of the cheaper spot weld bits. You could get the Blair ones. They're a little bit more expensive. This is the cheaper version. We've ordered 2 of these kits. We've literally went through probably 6 or 8 of these things. All of these. We'll go through plenty of those, so make sure you get plenty of extra spare ones. You could get those at Harbor Freight. You could get these things on Amazon, and I'll put a link in the description if you guys want to check those out. Also, I recommend a bigger hammer. You can see we have this little Pt.2 2-pound. Works really good. If you use a small hammer or like one of these little, this is like a $30 punch. So this one works good. So basically what you do,
you want to get a good pilot, a good center punch though.
That's why we use the bigger hammer and a nice center punch. So you can see we have a nice little center, and that's basically for the center of this tip. That is spring loaded. You can see it goes in. And so what you'll want to do is kind of when you go, you'll almost put it in and kind of put a little, how would you say?
A little bit of an angle on it.
Like
so you don't have the whole surface of the bit on there at one time, and it'll throw the bit off the center punch.
And then you want to go high speed, and you kind of like lean into one side and then start pushing it in, and then once you kind of have a hold, then you kind of like roll it around, and then so high speed. I mean, Sean's got this technique down. Drilling partners now, because that's how we're gonna do it.
See that happens sometimes. But.
That's pretty much it. And then you take your little chisel thing and you kind of separate it.
Pillar.
Depending on what you're trying to do too, you can be really nice to it to where you're trying to save the panel, or typically if you're just trying to like replace the panel, like let's say you get a new quarter panel, you can kind of chisel this stuff off and make it better. All right, so the other option is this 3M thing. And again, this is if the panel that you're pulling off, you're not gonna try and save the panel, like if how we're trying to like save all this stuff, that's why we've been using the spot weld cutter, because you just kind of have a little plug weld to kind of weld back up. But if you're just gonna pull it off and not replace it with like that, or you're not gonna use that panel on anything else, you could use one of these. You'll just kind of start in there and just kind of rock it up and down. And then these things actually move really, really fast with control. So now I'm gonna use a little chisel, go ahead and pull that off. And you can see that gives you a, underneath it. Typically, that is a faster method. Definitely recommend the 3M. 3M one works really, really well. Astro Tools makes one too. 3M belts are a little bit better. They work really, really good. That makes it really easy. And then when you go back to weld it, you already have kind of a clean place, you know, when you put your new thing on there. Kind of the ways of getting spot welds off, but we have a ton more to do on this this car. We're gonna get continuing with that. And again, links in the description for all that type of stuff. Okay, so we got the whole back of this thing cut out. We got it removed, and we got the wagon stuff over here on the ground. And then now we actually have the Evo stuff over here. You can see we tried to be strategic and leave certain pieces. Obviously the wagon, this stuff goes right here, kind of ties into there. We kind of cut it right here because that's kind of similar. Seat belts and stuff right here goes in the C-pillar, and so we're trying to keep that stuff. So we're definitely gonna have to do some more cutting over here, maybe kind of tap this in. I left this thing right here just to kind of give us a little bit more of a reference. You know, we could either cut it out later or whatever. Right here on the frame rail, we have a little bit extra. You can see there's the spot welds and stuff right here for the floor pan, and we have those basically right here. So yeah, there's a few little differences with the stuff up here, but for now, we're just gonna kind of stick it up in there and see how it goes. We're basically just gonna weld this piece together, all that stuff. So I left this thing so that, you know, everything would kind of stay at least a little bit true, and we could kind of work around that, hopefully. Leave this little piece in there. Yeah, I don't know. Again, we had to take off this little piece of the strut tower, so this stuff should sit right on top of that. And I don't know, we're just gonna keep going.
I think we're in a better position now than we were 3 hours ago.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's weird, but I mean, this is,
How the visions come to life.
yeah, I mean, this is what has to happen. Like, this has to go in to make everything work. But once it's in there and it's cut and it's fit, literally, we just got to weld and do a bunch of other stuff, which I'm really excited about. I'm actually working with HTP now. I have a new MIG welder and a new TIG welder, and these things are super, super bad. We'll talk about those later. We got some welding wire. We got some other stuff. We're going to replace this stuff. But for now, we're going to try to cut and kind of get this thing fitting in here so we could actually get to welding it. So playing with fitment right now, and you can see we're getting, it looks close, but there's a lot of little things that we actually need to do. So you can see this pillar right here is actually sitting seemingly where we would need it to be, but it kind of looks like it's lining up a little bit over here. There's a little bit of a discrepancy between the heights of here and here. We have about an extra inch on the wagon one versus the Evo one, so that's a little bit different. And then over here in the back, you can see where the actual floor pan goes. We're about an inch right there. So we're kind of getting hung up where this stuff doesn't want to go down. You can see where I left this little piece on the inside. That kind of gives us a good reference of where we need to put everything, shifting, you know, basically everything forward a little bit more. Getting hung up on this because there's a lot of tension on that right now. So I think what we're gonna have to do is go ahead and cut basically an inch, or like maybe a half an inch or something out of this, kind of let it ride, and then we'll just kind of weld it back together and weld this little plate back. Bunch of little things like that we have to kind of play with. Definitely showing some progress. You can see a little bit of a gap right here, trying to get that up a little bit more. But again, this side is actually really, really tight compared to that side. So, and I think we figured out where the inch is in the pan. So we could either, you know, push this back a little bit and try to kind of weld that stuff, or
Makes sense. It is.
Fabricate something.
Fabricate a whip.
Yeah. Biggest thing that we're trying to do is actually just line up this door so we get the door jamb and all this stuff kind of in there. And then once we do that, we're just going to weld it all together. So I left a little bit of the wagon structure in here. You might be able to get away with some of that, but yeah, you could see seemingly how much this would need to go up in here to make all this work. But I think the vision is correct. The sedan, this rear bar, obviously we'll probably be cutting that out later to, you know, be able to actually use this as like a wagon where everything folds down. I'm really curious how the Evo 9 wagon is in Japan, how the rear struts and everything are, if they're like this, if it kind of cuts into your cargo space. Because the USDM wagon, you actually have a lot of cargo space because all these things basically go flat straight down and the strut is over there. Now the strut is over here like the sedan. So I don't know, it'll be interesting to see.
It's coming together though. It's like there. Makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, now that it's in there, you know, and again, when we first started this thing, I thought we were going to have the back of this thing like done in 2 days. I thought that was going to be the simplest part, and now here we are a week and a half later still messing with spot welds. Fitting stuff a little bit more, went ahead and cut that, so we got everything kind of sitting up here. You could see basically that inner and this outer are really, really close to kind of flowing down and working really well. So I think we're in the zone. We found where the inch was, and it's not in the back. So you can see this pan basically butts all the way up against the back, but right here, look at that. There's our inch. There's our,
The floor pans are different.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is, if you look right here, this is the Evo pan. There's like a step up, which is about an inch tall, which is what we have. And then there's this little chicken strip in here of an inch that's 2 spot welds, a seam right here and a seam right here. And if you come in this chassis, there's only one seam right here. So 1 seam versus 2 seams. So good thing that we cut that where we did. Well, I think we're pushing it a little bit over here, but I think we're still okay. But now we have to grind out all that that seam sealer, basically make sure that this thing is super nice, and then put it in this chassis. Everything else is close. We got it kind of clamped right here, kind of getting everything fit. We kind of pushed it back a little bit. It's looking okay. We're looking okay with the deck height. We have to adjust that probably a little bit in the back. We're definitely making some progress. Basically what we're basing most everything off of right now is these door jambs, because as long as we could get the doors to close and the quarter panels and all that stuff on, fix everything around it. But yeah, it's just interesting how different these chassis are. More spot welds, buddy. More spot welds, but guess what?
Trevi Customs.
Trevi's Customs, that's the theme.
Figuring out the structural and like integrity part of it.
Nobody's ever done this before either.
Exactly.
And there's no write-ups on it, so now
The best way to throw it back together and have the most structural support everywhere like it should from factory, basically.
yeah, because there's a lot of stuff relying on that center piece. That ties literally everything into the chassis right there. So we might make a little extra brace stuff. We might not. We might. I don't know. We're figuring it out though. Pretty stoked right now seeing this thing back down after this after we added this little piece. Check this out. So this is the piece out of the Evo, and this is obviously the Lancer wagon. There was about an inch height difference right here, and then there was an inch difference right here. So you can see since we swapped that pan, it's gonna work. We have a couple little bit more things that we need to do as far as shaping to get this thing to slide back up in there. There's a little frame rail discrepancy on the bottom that we're gonna work through. But what do you think?
I'm excited. I'm ready to get it done. I know that. I'm ready to stop doing spot welds for the next God knows how long.
But as far as like the project,
I can't wait to be driving it.
I know. But like now it's gonna work, because there's been so many times this whole time where we're just like, we don't even know what we're doing.
But now we're getting there.
Exactly, because like even this whole thing, like I wish we would have just left that in.
Yeah, we just didn't know at the time. I do too, obviously.
I mean, now we know. So if anybody wants us to do an Evo wagon conversion for you guys,
How much?
I don't know, probably like
25 grand.
25
You guys
grand.
supply the Evos.
Yeah, you got to give us 2. You got to give us a wagon and this
an
thing.
Evo.
We'll chop them up and we'll make you
25
guys a
grand.
thing. Or you could spend like a month and a half in your garage on the weekends. Or you could literally spend 50 grand and get one imported. Vision is coming to a, now we actually know, obviously all this stuff is going to come up, weld this thing together. Pretty stoked to continue this project. If you guys are stoked about this thing and you want to see where we are at next, should hit that subscribe button with the bell notification and, you know, with the all notifications. And if you guys would like your own Evo, if you can't build an Evo wagon, or you don't have an Evo, you can't afford an Evo, you can pick yourself up some awesome merch on MotionAutoTv.com or some car parts and get yourself entered to win our 700 horsepower 2.3 stroker fully built Evo 9 with like 75,000 miles. This thing is an absolute ripper. 36 pounds of boost. It's crazy. We're gonna take it to the dyno, make some actual videos of. A lot of you guys don't know where this Evo came from. That will be in a video kind of revealing it, talking about it, and doing all that other stuff. But we are doing a giveaway on it. Get stoked about that. But appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you later.